It's Nassim here. Now today I will be giving you guys the ultimate unboxing experience of the brand new 9th generation iPad. Now the 9th generation iPad is considered to be the cheapest in Apple's tablet lineup, but when it comes to Apple, cheaper doesn't always mean low quality. Like if you look at every quote unquote cheap product that Apple has come out with, they were often ahead of its time and packed with a lot of power considering its price. And my example of Apple's cheaper products is especially the case when it comes to their iPads. See, they are considered lower quality, but often end up surprising me when it comes to their productivity. And before I continue my thoughts on the 9th generation iPad, let's unbox this thing. Now, the first thing that I noticed when I was unboxing the 9th gen iPad was that it had a very nice, clean aesthetic that is a staple when it comes to Apple products as a whole. And I must say that this is a much more simple feel because sometimes Apple likes to throw a little bit of color here and there, but this wasn't the case when it came to the 9th generation iPad. And now when we look at the front, the first thing that we can see is the iPad face sideways, which is really interesting because usually there would be a picture of the product facing the front or back to give us more details on what's to come. Now next up, when it comes to the sides of the box, we can see the very simple iPad text like on last year's box. And on the top, we can see the Apple logo. And again, there's a very plain look that matches with the iPad. And now when we look at the back of the box, we can see all of the extra information regarding your purchase, like which stores you bought, what color version you have, what's inside the box, and all types of other information. Now, when we open the box, the first thing that we can see is the iPad wrapped in paper. And on the back, there's the beautiful white matte finish, which is my personal favorite, especially since it gives off a very professional feel. And you can also see the black glossy Apple logo, just like on any other device. And honestly, I think it would be much better if they made it matte, just like on the rest of the device. But let me know in the comments if you think that would be better. Also on the top left, we have the small 8 megapixel camera that is very underwhelming, just like on last year's version. But for the price and the fact that most people don't take a lot of pictures on iPads, gives the camera some credibility. We also have the iPad imprint on the bottom of the back, and along that there's some other information regarding the device. Now on the top we have the headphone jack, which I'm really happy that they decided to keep, along with things such as speakers, the up and down volume rockers, and also the lightning cable port. Now the first thing that we see once we've removed the iPad is the Designed by Apple Made in California booklet that contains all sorts of paperwork like manuals for those who want to know more about the tablet, and also 2 Apple logo stickers that come with almost every Apple device in the catalog. And after the booklet, we get the USB Type-C charging brick, which I'm really glad they kept, and also we get the USB Type-C cable to complete the charging set. Now the 9th generation iPad comes in 2 different colors, the first being space gray and the next being silver, which is the one that I have. And I myself have always been a fan of the white version. As I said before, it gives off a very professional and polished look, especially when complemented by the matte back. And looking at it in the light, you can see just how beautiful it is. It shines very bright once the light hits it, and it's just an amazing color overall. And the only problem that I have is that I feel that they should have added more colors like red, blue, green, and anything that would be more fun, because I see a lot of parents getting this tablet for their kids and it wouldn't hurt to add a colorful cheap iPad. Now when it comes to the display, the 9th generation iPad has a 10.2 inch Retina display that has a resolution of 2160 by 1620p with 264 pixels per inch. And if I'm being honest, you guys, I must admit that it was a great looking screen, but only when I was facing it. Like as you can see here, when I look at it straight on, it looks great. But once I turn it to the side a little, I could tell that this was a pretty cheap screen. The color was pretty faded and was pretty distracting whenever I was trying to see what I was doing. But honestly, I doubt that most people will ever be in a position where they're viewing something from the side, so this definitely could be looked over. But whenever I was head on with the screen, it didn't disappoint. The colors were vibrant and it surprisingly looked better than I thought, especially when I would play high quality videos. And to give you guys some examples, here's what it looks like when I watch a video and I play a game.
noticeably thicker, and that is totally fine with me, and it has plenty of benefits, and it also stands up a little bit higher on those taller feet, which seemingly gives it a bit more room for those back and side vents for better ventilation, although I've never heard the fans spin up.
Now, when it comes to the size of the iPad 9th generation, it has the exact same size as last year's 8th generation iPad, with its height being 9.8 inches, its width being 6.8 inches, and its depth being 0.29 inches. And just like last year, I had no complaints with the size whatsoever, and I'm really surprised that they kept the iPad this big, especially with its price. And going back to the display, I do wish that they would have got rid of the unbalanced bezels, but again, the price comes into factor, so I really can't complain too much because let's be real, Apple is extremely cheap. And also the size really helped when it came to me using the iPad to get some work done or whenever I wanted some entertainment. And now when it comes to the storage of the iPad 9th generation, we sadly only have two options, the first being the 64GB version and the second being the 256GB version. And see, the main problem that I have with the storage is not only the lack of options, but also the fact that Apple still implemented 64 gigs as its starting storage instead of 128 gigs. And just like I mentioned before, the problem with 64 gigs is that apps, pictures, and videos take up much more space than they used to. And to give you guys an example, it's kind of like when Apple used to have devices that only had 16 gigs. After a while, apps started taking up more and more space to the point where 16 gigs isn't enough. And I think that's the same thing happening to 64 gigs. And let me know in the comments, you guys, do you think that 64 gigs is enough? Or should the starting storage be 128 gigs? Now, moving on to the camera of the iPad 9th Gen, it has an 8 megapixel wide lens, and based off that spec alone, I would definitely say that the photos weren't going to be so great. Like in these sample photos that I took, the pictures were average at best, especially when I took photos in good light. I could see some pixelation in the daytime, which is a huge turnoff, and the coloration was much more bland in comparison to real life. But again, I didn't expect too much out of it because it's the cheapest iPad, so it wasn't too underwhelming. Also, I have a few sample videos that I wanted to show you guys, so let me know what you think in the comments.
Here's the video. It's not the best, but it's also an iPad, so it's not too bad.
And now when it comes to the extra specs regarding the 9th gen iPad, it has an A13 Bionic chip, which is in phones like the iPhone 11 and 11 Pro. It has a 32.4 watt rechargeable battery that is pretty good for its price. And last but not least, it also supports iPad OS 15, which is also on all of the newer iPads. And there you have you guys, my unboxing and review of the iPad 9th generation. Now let me know in the comments, do you think that this iPad is worth buying, especially for the price? Let me know down below. And if you guys made it to the end of this video, I would like to say thank you for sticking around. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe, it would be very appreciated. And as far as social media, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. And I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.